Every single day, the financial system tells you that you need hundreds of thousands of dollars, a perfect credit score, and a 30-year mortgage to buy a piece of American real estate. They tell you to save your money, go to a bank, and beg for permission to build wealth. Meanwhile, while you are fighting 50 other retail buyers over an overpriced 3-bedroom house on Zillow, Wall Street, hedge funds and elite transaction engineers are quietly acquiring properties for $3,000, $4,000, pennies on the dollar. They are not using banks. They are not negotiating with real estate agents. They are completely bypassing the traditional market and going straight to the single most powerful entity in the country, the local government. Today, I'm going to expose the hidden, multi-billion-dollar underground market of tax liens and tax deeds. I'm going to show you exactly how you can legally acquire a $250,000 asset simply by paying someone else's unpaid tax bill. This is Property Path. Throw away your bank applications. We are going straight to the county courthouse. To understand this ultimate real estate hack, you have to understand the brutal reality of how local governments operate. Your county, your city, your municipality, they survive on one thing: property taxes. Property taxes pay for the public schools. They pay for the police department. They pay for the fire trucks and the road repairs. When a homeowner stops paying their property taxes, the local government has a massive problem. They have a deficit. The county cannot go to the Federal Reserve and print money. They need cash immediately to keep the city running. So, what does the county do to get their money? They use their absolute supreme legal authority to place a tax lien on the property, and then they sell that debt to an investor. That investor is you. The government essentially says if the homeowner won't pay the $3,000 in taxes they owe us, we will let a private investor pay it for them. In exchange, we will give that investor the right to collect massive interest, or we will give them the entire house. There are two different systems in the United States, depending on which state you are investing in: tax lien states and tax deed states. You must understand the difference or you will get slaughtered. Let us start with tax liens. This is the ultimate passive income vehicle. In a tax lien state like Florida or Arizona, the county auction is selling the debt, not the actual house. Let's look at the math. A house is worth $300,000, but the owner failed to pay their $5,000 property tax bill. You go to the county tax auction, most of which are completely online now. You bid on that $5,000 tax certificate. If you win, you write a check to the county for $5,000. The county gets their money, the schools get funded, and the county is happy. What do you get? You get a legally binding certificate that guarantees you an astronomical interest rate. Depending on the state, that interest rate can be anywhere from 8% to a staggering 36% annually. The homeowner now owes you the $5,000 plus that massive interest rate. And here is the absolute beauty of this system: this is not an unsecured credit card debt. Your investment is secured by the $300,000 real estate asset. By law, the homeowner has a specific redemption period, usually 1 to 3 years, to pay you back. If they pay you back, you just made an incredible, government-backed return on your cash that destroys any stock market index fund. But what if they don't pay you back? What if the redemption period expires and the homeowner ghosts you? This is where you execute the kill shot. You file for foreclosure. But this is not a traditional bank foreclosure. A property tax lien is the supreme lien. It wipes out almost everything else. When you foreclose on that tax lien, the original homeowner is evicted, and you take legal ownership of the $300,000 house for the $5,000 you paid at the auction. You just acquired an asset for pennies on the dollar. Now, let us talk about the second system, tax deeds. This is the aggressive, fast-paced game. In a tax deed state like Texas or California, the county does not sell the debt. They do not want to wait around. If the homeowner doesn't pay their taxes, the county seizes the property entirely and auctions off the actual deed to the highest bidder. You are not buying paper. You are buying the dirt and the bricks. The bidding usually starts at the exact amount of back taxes owed. If the house is worth $200,000 and the back taxes are $4,000, the auction opens at $4,000. Even if a bidding war breaks out among investors and the price gets pushed up to $40,000, you are still acquiring a $200,000 asset at an 80% discount. You win the auction, you hand the county a cashier's check, and the county hands you the deed to the property. It is yours. You can immediately flip it, you can rent it out, or you can wholesale it to another investor. It sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It sounds like the ultimate cheat code. And that brings us to the trap. The hidden landmines that destroy the amateurs who watch one TikTok video and decide to empty their savings account at a county auction. This is the due diligence trap. When you buy a property at a tax auction, you are buying it as is, whereas, with all faults, the county makes absolutely no guarantees about what you are actually buying. Amateur investors log onto the online auction. They see an address. They look it up on Zillow. Zillow says the house is worth $300,000. The starting bid is only $5,000. The amateur gets greedy. They bid $10,000. They win, and they think they are rich. 2 days later, they drive to the property to look at their new investment. And what do they find? They find an empty lot. The house burned down 3 years ago, which is why the owner stopped paying the taxes. Zillow's algorithm just hadn't updated the data. The amateur just paid $10,000 for a worthless piece of dirt in a terrible neighborhood. Or worse, they find the house, but it is an environmentally contaminated meth lab. Now, the amateur is legally responsible for a $50,000 EPA cleanup. Or they buy what they think is a massive parcel of land, only to look at the county plat map after the auction and realize they bought a 1-foot wide strip of grass between 2 driveways that has absolutely zero commercial value. The professionals never make these mistakes because the professionals treat the tax auction like a forensic investigation. Before I ever bid a single dollar at a tax auction, I execute a militant due diligence process. First, I pull the county GIS, map the geographic information system. I look at the exact parcel lines. I ensure the property is not landlocked, meaning it actually has access to a public road. I ensure it is not sitting in the middle of a flood zone. Second, I send a local drive-by inspector. If I'm investing out of state, I pay someone $50 on TaskRabbit to drive to the property, take 20 high-resolution photos of the exterior, and confirm that the house is actually standing and has a roof. Third, and most importantly, I run a preliminary title search. While property tax liens wipe out most traditional mortgages, there are certain liens that survive a tax sale. The deadliest one, an IRS federal tax lien. If the previous owner owed the federal government $100,000 in income taxes and you buy that house at the county auction, the IRS lien stays attached to the property. You just bought someone else's federal nightmare. You must check the public records for IRS liens, city code violations, and municipal utility liens. If the property passes the GIS test, passes the drive-by visual test, and passes the title test, it gets put on my approved bidding list. I calculate the absolute maximum price I am willing to pay to maintain my profit margin, and I do not bid a single penny over that number. This is how you extract massive wealth from the government system. You remove the emotion. You remove the guesswork. You operate purely on verified data. The middle class is terrified of real estate right now because they are playing by the rules designed by the banks. They are letting 7% interest rates dictate their future. The transaction engineers do not care about interest rates because we are not borrowing money. We are using a few $1,000s of our own capital or our business credit lines to buy government-seized assets for pennies on the dollar. But I know exactly what the skeptics and the cowards in the comment section are furiously typing right now. They are screaming, "You can't do this anymore." The hedge funds and Wall Street firms show up to these county auctions with millions of dollars in cash. They outbid everyone. You cannot compete with BlackRock. That is the excuse of a loser. That is the narrative weak people use to justify staying broke. Let me explain exactly how institutional money actually works so you can stop fearing them and start exploiting their blind spots. Hedge funds and institutional buyers operate on scale. They have a mandate from their investors to deploy $50 million a month. Because they are deploying massive capital, they only target the safest, most generic assets. They want the cookie-cutter, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in the A-class suburban neighborhood. Yes, if you try to bid on that specific house, a hedge fund will outbid you. Let them have it. The margins on those houses are razor thin anyway. You are not a hedge fund. You are a sniper. Hedge funds do not have the time, the manpower, or the desire to underwrite the weird, ugly, off-the-radar assets. They will not touch a distressed duplex in a C-class working neighborhood. They will absolutely ignore the half-acre of commercially zoned vacant land sitting right next to a developing retail strip. They pass right over the weirdly shaped parcels. That is your playground. That is where the wealth is hiding. You step into the vacuum that Wall Street leaves behind, and you acquire those assets for the starting bid. And what if you hate bidding wars entirely? What if the idea of going up against other investors at a live auction paralyzes you? Let me give you the ultimate backdoor to the government system. The secret within the secret. It is called the over-the-counter list, also known as the strike-off list or the leftover list. What happens to the properties at the county auction that nobody bids on? The houses with the peeling paint that intimidated the amateurs? The vacant lots that the hedge funds ignored? They do not just disappear. They go back to the county. The day after the auction, the county clerk takes all the unsold properties and places them on an over-the-counter list. At this point, the auction is over. There is no more bidding. You can literally walk into the county courthouse or log onto their portal, look at the OTC list, point to a property, and buy it right then and there for the exact amount of the back taxes. No competition, no raised paddles. You slide a cashier's check across the counter and they hand you the deed. You can acquire real estate on a random Tuesday afternoon just by knowing which office to walk into. Now, let us talk about the immediate exit strategy, because the amateur gets the deed and panics. They say, okay, I bought a house for $5,000, but it needs $40,000 in renovations, and I don't have that kind of money. You do not need that kind of money because you are not going to swing a hammer. You are a transaction engineer. You move paper. The exact second that county deed is recorded in your LLC's name, you execute a quick flip. You pull a list of the active cash buyers and house flippers in that specific zip code. These are the guys who watch HGTV and love doing the dirty work. You call them up and say, I have a property free and clear. The after repair value is $150,000. I own it outright. I will sell you the deed right now for $25,000 cash. The flipper looks at the math. They see there is massive meat left on the bone. They wire you $25,000. Let us review your timeline. You paid the county $5,000. 48 hours later, you sold the asset for $25,000 to a flipper. You just generated a net profit of $20,000 in a single week. You never touched a paintbrush. You never pulled a permit. You just acted as the middleman between the government's problem and the flipper's need for inventory. This is the velocity of money. This is how you build a bankroll out of absolutely nothing. The tax sale lists are public record. Your local county tax collector publishes them for free every single month. The over-the-counter lists are sitting in a filing cabinet or a PDF link on a forgotten county website. The inventory is sitting right there, waiting for someone with the intelligence to underwrite it and the courage to acquire it. I want you to take action the second this video ends. Open a new tab. Search for tax deed auction. Find the next upcoming sale. Download the list of delinquent properties. Pick 3 properties and run the forensic due diligence process I just taught you. Then call the clerk and ask them how to access their over-the-counter list. Stop fighting the retail market. Stop complaining that housing is too expensive. The rules of the wealthy are fully available to you. Start playing the institutional game. I will see you at the auction.